live? Let's see. This is weird. Am I live now? I don't even know what's going on. This is so strange. Can people see me now? Am I here? This is really weird. Am I actually live right now, guys? I can't tell what's good. We had a very strange technical issue. I'm live. Okay, good. All right, good. I didn't know what was going on. That was so weird. I was like live, but not really. I streamed only to myself for like 5 minutes. It was really depressing. Really depressing. Okay, so 2 ways to call in. If you are not a member, you go to davidpakman.com/Discord and you get in the waiting lobby. If you are a website member, you go to davidpakman.com/Discord and you go to the member waiting lobby. If you don't see the member waiting lobby, it's because you have not sent proof of your membership to the PakBot. PakBot is a user on Discord, PAK-BOT. Send a screenshot logged into the website to PakBot, and then you will get access to the member waiting room. God, I hope this is working. I do want to say thanks to Christine Johnson, by the way. In all seriousness, Christine just grabbed a website membership. I appreciate that. Okay, let's go right into it. Let's start with a member. We will start with Haley from Georgia. Haley, it's great to have you back on.
Hey, David. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you beautifully.
Great. So I just want to say 2 things. First
Please.
of all, I really did not appreciate what Michael Knowles said about his consequential ethics question.
Okay.
When he described his not so very subtle dog whistle relating gay sex to immoral behavior.
Right.
That was just disgusting to me.
Of course, but it's not surprising, right?
No, of course not.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, beautifully said.
Thank you. The other thing is, just a question for you. Is it really a good idea that we're pulling all Western media from the Russians right now, since all they're faced with now is state propaganda?
That's always a question, which is, well, sometimes when you punish someone, you just exacerbate the problem that precipitated the punishment to begin with.
Right.
I don't think it's unique to this situation. I think, if anything, it should sort of like be temporary, because we should be trying actually to give people in Russia alternatives. But the other reality is a lot of this stuff is getting blocked in Russia anyway. So at the end of the day, I don't really know how much of a difference it makes. The people with VPNs in Russia are accessing stuff in other countries anyway. So it's kind of like there's the ideology of it and then there's the logistics of it. And I don't know where we are on either.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right. Well, good talking to you. Good luck on your town hall.
Thank you, Haley from Georgia. A beautiful phone call. Let's speak to one more of our members. Let's go to Ben from Ohio. Ben, you're on the air.
Hi, David. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine.
Wow. I am so excited to talk to you. It's like that time I had lunch with Lindsey Graham.
You sound excited, I have to admit.
Well, I have a couple thoughts that I would like to run by you and just see what your reaction is. And then I just have one quick question, if I may, sir.
Sure.
So I'm sort of formally a fundamentalist Christian of the sort of end times fire and brimstone sort. And, I've listened to you talk a lot lately about the very pernicious sort of fundamentalist, not that you word it this way, but the sort of Christian aspect, the Christian nationalism aspect of Trumpism now. And I got to be honest with you, I just feel like, and this might just be my own bias and my own experience, but I feel like by and large, at least in my own anecdotal experience, many liberals do not seem to understand the sort of viability of heaven and martyrdom and all of these sort of spiritual aspects in the minds of your not average, but many, many Christians and by association Trump supporters. And, I could elaborate about that more, but maybe you know what I mean. Maybe you think that's nonsense. I'd be interested to hear what you have to say.
I have no idea what you're talking about. You're saying that a lot of liberals don't understand that for some of these fundamentalist Christians, the concept of heaven is a literal concept. They literally think that they're going to a place in the sky when they die.
That's been, well, that not maybe not that particular topic, but just the degree to which the Christian and the reality of the Bible aspect seems to be operating in the minds of many, again, Trump supporters / what we might call Christian nationalist type people. Again, this might be anecdotal. This might just be people I've experienced, but I feel like I experience many people who they just don't seem to think that the many religious people are serious about what they're saying. They always think it's political or.
Oh no, I think we've got a good sense that they're very serious. That's a fair point. What was the question you had?
Well, is that all you want to say about that?
Yeah, I got to be honest. I don't totally understand what you're talking about, but I certainly understand the importance of these concepts to religious people.
You do. But do you think that the average liberal, which is obviously hard to pinpoint because that's not one type of person, but do you think that a large majority of Democrats or liberals or leftists recognize what you've described?
I think many do. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I might be on my own then on that.
Fair.
Okay, well, I'm in Ohio, and the Senate race is coming up, and I'm pretty confident I'm going to vote for Tim Ryan in the primary. I've heard you talk about him a lot,
yep.
And I'd be interested to hear you elaborate more about why you like him. I watched the Democratic primary as well as the Republican primary, which was absolutely insane. If you haven't watched that, it is one of the most mind-blowing sort of crazy Republican things you could possibly watch was the Ohio Republican primary debate. But I watched the Senate, the Democratic primary debate, and I'd already kind of liked Tim Ryan. So anyway, I can jump off, but yeah, I'd be interested to hear if you could elaborate more about what it is that you like about him, because I like him, but I don't actually know that much about him.
Yeah, I think he's a great speaker. I know him personally from having interviewed him a couple times. He's got a good head on his shoulders. He's genuine. He is not the ultra uber progressive, but I think he's the best candidate when you balance personality, demeanor, speaking ability to get along with people, and his politics. So I think he's definitely the best candidate.
Okay. Can I ask you one last thing about him?
Ben, I got to run. Ben in Ohio. I have so many people waiting. Thank you, Ben in Ohio. Let's go over to the waiting lobby now. Now we will go to a non-member. Let's hear now from a non-member. Let's go to, why don't we go to Robbie from Pennsylvania? Robbie, go.
Hello. So I was going to ask you, is my microphone okay?
It's okay. Yeah.
Okay. So I was going to ask you what you think of the Shelby County versus Holder decision.
What it's not ringing a bell. Remind me what decision that is?
So the Supreme Court decision that they decided to throw out the Section 4B of the Voting Rights Act.
That's the name of the most recent one. That's the 2013. Okay, yes, where the states, the listed states no longer have to pre-clear changes with the federal government. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Fair. Okay.
So I was going to ask you, what do you think about that decision? Because I don't, the new Texas laws that have been put in place have been kind of because of that decision, because you can't get pre-clearance to the Justice Department before the laws are put in place, right?
I think it's a disaster. There's a bunch of the states affected. North Carolina is an example. Wisconsin is an example. Arizona is an example. Ohio. These are states that are not only have a history of problematic voting rights legislation, they're also extremely important states today, right? Like Alabama's on the list. Alabama has a disastrous history of voter intimidation and all these different things. But when's the last time Alabama was in play, right, in a presidential election? But these other states are hugely consequential, and I think the decision was a disaster.
Okay. And could I ask you any other questions or anything?
Well, do you have any other questions?
Yeah, so I'm from Pennsylvania. I was just listening to the recent conversation you were having with the other guy. I was wondering who you think should be the senator in Pennsylvania. Like,
Fetterman, John Fetterman. Hello. All right. Thank you very much for the call. Let's hear from Sam in New York City. Sam, you're on the air.
Hey, thanks so much. Can you hear me?
Just barely, but we're gonna go with it.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to get your thoughts. I know you've mentioned him before, but I've been watching his videos sort of out of spite, and I'm really concerned about Russell Brand and the rhetoric he's spinning. I don't know how closely you follow him, but I just wanted to get your take.
Honestly, since we did our video about Russell Brand a few months ago, I haven't seen anything else he's done. What is he up to? What's he saying?
Oh, it's incredibly dangerous. I mean, he takes these ideas that are sometimes in theory, in very broad sense, valid. Like he'll critique congressional stock trading, which I also critique, but then he'll paint it with this like conspiratorial lens, or he's spoken a lot about Ukraine and Russia in a very weaponized way, and he'll say we should look at all angles, which like everyone, it's always a good idea to look at all angles of a situation, but then just like plays with these conspiracy theories about biolabs and
yeah, I'm seeing some of it now on the channel. Like it all makes really sense bad. Now with a thumbnail of Fauci. And then,
oh my God, yeah.
You were right. They lied with a picture of a vaccine syringe, and the Great Reset is beginning. These are the end times. It seems pretty whacked.
Yeah, he's got a massive following, and it's growing. And just this type of rhetoric. I think this is like a bridge to more serious conspiracy theories. You've spoken about how these things are. People sort of follow trajectory from. Maybe more, to become wackier and wackier, and I don't know. I'm just wondering. I would recommend checking out some of them.
I'm gonna have to check out. We might have to do a follow-up video, quite frankly.
Yeah, I think you should. I mean, it's dangerous. And I'm worried about it. But anyway, thanks so much.
All right, thank you. There's Sam from New York City. We are in the middle of a town hall. Let's go back over to our members waiting lobby. We do give some priority to members. That is true. Let's go to SD in Dallas, Texas. SD, you're on the air.
David, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. Yeah, I just had a question. I'm talking about like for our side. So like, Democrats, progressives, anybody left of center. Is it about time that we should just basically wave the white flag when it comes to mail-in voting? Just because it's been so tampered with at this point, and it's basically become so filled with all these technicalities that they could just be so easily disqualified.
Oh, absolutely not. No, I think we've got to fix the problem. But there are people, Trump wants to make it seem like nobody really needs to vote by mail. But the truth is, it's extremely important. There's so many people that, can't get time off to vote on election day. Or don't have a car, so early voting in person isn't that useful to them. Remember, Trump voted by mail. So no, I don't think it's time to wave the white flag on vote by mail. I think it's time to just keep pushing and fix vote by mail to the extent that it's easy to have your vote disqualified.
I agree, but I guess I'm talking about this like because in my state during the primary there were way more ballots rejected this time.
Yeah,
and I'm just also speaking like from having somebody that basically helped because both of my grandparents vote by mail and I helped them fill out their primary ballots.
Yep.
And this time there were way more requirements. And it wasn't only them that had to basically check and make sure. I think we did it for up to an hour. It was also me. Like I had to sign off as both the witness and also the person that took the ballot to the mailbox.
Wait, you're saying it took an hour to fill? It took an hour to fill in the absentee ballot?
No. It didn't take it it took an effort for basically us to like go through everything and make sure like we were crystal clear that it would not get rejected. I'm saying there was a requirement that me as a witness and me as their aide, I also had to sign off on that. If I did not, it would have been a crime.
I gotcha. Yeah, no, we can't. They want us to give up on it, so we can. That's a very bad idea. Definitely, we don't want to do that.
Okay. Well, thank you for your wisdom on that.
All right. Thank you. There's SD. By the way, anybody pinging me and DMing me on Discord, I will permanently mute you. I'm trying to run a show here, so we can't have that. The noises are automatically muted, and then I will mute you as a user because it's just annoying. Okay. There's only one way to get on, and it's to get into the appropriate lobby, and that's it. Okay. So anything else, I will never hear from you again. I have to do it, guys. I'm sorry. Let's go to Drew from Fort Lauderdale in the member lobby. Drew, go ahead.
David, sir.
Please.
I'm so glad that you continue to do these town halls to hear from people like SD from Dallas and
Thank
what
you.
they're going through.
Absolutely.
Direction of this country. And may I, sir, just make a correction to the live stream earlier about the gentleman who was evangelizing on the airplane. It was not a private charter. According to Vice.com, it was EasyJet flight out of Poland.
Oh my God. That's right. That Red Wing is like an EasyJet thing. Then it is vomitous, because if that is indeed just a regular commercial flight, who the hell would allow that?
He said that in the story, it says that he asked the flight attendant if he could do it, and they gave him permission to do it.
Oh, fire the flight attendants. Oh, my God.
I mean, this is where we're at, sir.
Now, it was a flight from Poland to where, do you know?
I believe they're based out of London.
Okay, yeah, but I think they have a lot of point-to-point. I don't know that it's like a hub model.
The gentleman who's doing the he's doing the guitar singing is from Singapore.
Okay, jeez.
Yeah.
That is a flying nightmare, my friend.
But I wanted to say about that, compared to them crying about non-existent CRT and gender nonsense, and claiming that the liberals are indoctrinating children.
Right.
What is this? What is this?
It's insane. It's completely insane.
And then one more thing, sir. I want to talk about the Democrats,
please,
sir, and their weaknesses. Mm-hmm. And out of these four things, their messaging, their candidates, their unwillingness to fight a GOP messaging aggressively.
Okay.
Or their inability to win culture wars. What do you think is their biggest weakness?
Oh, man. I think it's the former, the organization and logistical stuff. Because I think if they figured that out, they could prevent the culture war stuff from even getting as important as it gets.
Okay.
It's very close to 50-50, but that's the way I'm leaning.
Right. It just, to me, all of them are big weaknesses, but
yeah.
I mean, to me, it's their candidates. I mean, some of their candidates are very weak and milquetoast, as you like to say.
Absolutely. Milquetoast for sure.
Well, sir, thank you very much. I hope all is well, and thank you for calling on me.
Beautiful assessment. Thank you so much.
Your wife is up in the air.
Let's go back over to the normal waiting lobby and speak to a non-member, and we'll go to David from Colorado. You're on the air. David from Colorado, you're on the air.
Hey, David, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right. I wanted to get your input on why you think the Democrats are so horrible at messaging. Because right now we have currently, previous members of Trump's White House, Congress people who have, pretty openly coordinated with some of these hate groups. Mm-hmm. Speaking of the, January 6th Capitol riot.
Yeah.
So when something like that is happening, how is it that Republicans still manage to walk away with the kind of messaging that is on everyday news?
So I think there's two parts to this, okay? Number one, Republicans pour more money into this like blanket, everyone on the same page type focus grouping, etc. So part of it is that they're sort of like more determined to do it. The other side is on a lot of issues, let's be honest, the Republican positions are way simpler to explain. I mean, right? Like the truth is when you can say we need tax relief because taxes are a burden, It's your money. Lower taxes are better. That's like crystal clear. The Democratic position is not the opposite. It's not, no, we need the highest possible taxes. It's, well, one problem is that the question of who pays the taxes, the rich don't pay enough. But at the same time, we also have the issue of what are the taxes used for? And we wouldn't really need to raise taxes at all or much at all if we had a smaller military industrial complex. And like, you've already lost people, right? Abortion. Hey, you're killing people. An abortion is murder. Just, we're pro-life. Stop killing people. That's way more cut and dry than, listen, obviously there is some point at which we would agree that this is a person, but different people disagree. And that's not really the question when we talk about bodily autonomy. You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah. So sort of the nuance is drowning out people's interest
Yes.
in forming more coherent or complex views on these issues. It is sort of just breaking past that reactionary phase.
Absolutely.
Are there any sort of issues that you think that we might be able to simplify the messaging a little bit?
Well, I mean, listen, there's millions of dollars behind that. I don't know that I'm going to come up with the simplifications here, but I do think that if there were more of a concerted effort to rethink some of these talking points and to get united on them, I do think there's a massive opportunity to do better. But I don't have the specifics right now on a lot of these.
Of course.
Yeah.
It remains to be seen what comes of the January 6th commission. But all right, thanks for taking my call, David.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for the call. Let's stick in the regular lobby for now and go to Sam from Lansing, Michigan. Sam, you're on the air.
Hey, David, thanks for having me on.
My pleasure.
I'm worried about midterms, and if it almost seems like the Democrat Party is playing the tit for tat with the Republican Party to keep the game alive as long as they can.
Well, so, okay. I mean, here's the thing. I see the parties basically as corporations in the sense that their priority is to justify their own existence. And without a doubt, part of the way that one party justifies its existence is by framing themselves in opposition to something else. So I do agree with you that to a great degree, political parties depend on and benefit from there being constantly contested elections and this type of thing. I think that's true. But I don't know how much it impacts those of us who are just kind of trying to get specific people elected. So it's true, but I don't know in what way it's actionable.
Well, thank you for that. The other thing, I've actually been, all right, social media and the power of the internet and the fact that millennials and Zoomers are going to be the voting bloc majority for 2024 and further on. I'm trying to work on getting young people on social media who are all singing the same song to step up to the plate and put your name on the ballot all at once under kind of a new party made by millennials and who are finally of age to start trying to clean up this mess that we get to inherit.
You're saying encourage millennials to run, but under a third party?
Get all of us who are singing the same song of we just want healthcare, ending the war on drugs, term limits in Congress, and maybe some trains. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, I just don't the way campaign finance works right now. I mean, at the local level, absolutely right away. Unless we fix campaign finance, it'll be hard to win with that at the federal level.
Okay. Could you please elaborate on that? I'd like to I'm trying to learn as much as I can.
So there's a lot of local elections that are nonpartisan, or at least they might be partisan, but the parties don't really care about them. They don't fund them. And those are really great opportunities. City councils, school boards, even some state rep positions, state senators, even to some degree, where like as an independent or third party or whatever, you're barely at a disadvantage. But, it's going to be very difficult for, a national Senate race against an incumbent Republican or Democrat and a challenger to go to an independent. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying it is very difficult, and I think we need to change campaign finance in order for that to be more realistic.
So what if let me run this kind of hypothetical by you. What if we kind of played their game, but kind of exploit the rules the way speedrunners do? And I've gotten in contact with a number of very large content creators on TikTok, and they're true progressives, just wanting the same thing over and over. Healthcare, ending the war on drugs, term limits in Congress, and some infrastructure. That's it. Those are the core principles that we can cut out the race, color, class, and creed identity politics that are used to divide us, and we can unite under very simple principles.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic idea. I think the problem you'll come up against nationally is the way politics is funded. And I've got a bunch of videos on that if that's interesting to you.
Yeah. Well, there's certain rules around, number of votes you get in the polls, as well as how much funding that your campaign or your party has raised in order to even be allowed on the ballot. And every state has different rules, and some states don't even allow for a third party, which is unconstitutional. So that's kind of why I want to do all of this and get as many people. I'm trying to aim for 60 millennials who are screaming their song on TikTok and other social media every day. Step up to the plate, put your name on the ballot, and let's play this game, because that's how they see it. The people at the top who manipulate it, so that way we think we have some sort of semblance and control over the game, but when it's
I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great idea. I would encourage you to do it. I'm going to let you go because we've got so many people waiting. I am going to move over to the member waiting lobby. I will again suggest to people politely, let's try to make these questions and less commentaries so that we can get to people who are waiting. That's just a request from me. Let's go to Cameron from Calgary. Cameron, you're next on the air.
Hello, David. It's great to speak with you. I've been a member for a while now, and
thank you so much.
The show a lot.
I appreciate that.
Concise question, so I'll do your request. I want to know what your moral philosophy is.
Broadly, my moral philosophy.
Yeah, exactly. I find moral philosophy kind of lies a foundation into kind of where you fall in the political spectrum, and I was wondering what yours is.
I've never put it together sort of as like a treatise, I would say. So I don't know that I'm prepared to kind of monologue about it at this point. Much of what I'm doing is espousing my moral philosophy in a particular context related to a political idea or a particular issue. So I don't have like an elevator speech prepared on my moral philosophy, I must admit.
No, that's completely fine. As I've been watching your show, I've kind of been trying to figure out kind of what your underlying moral principles are through your politics that you explain on the show. Maybe a more specific question would be, do you have any kind of moral principles that you would say are kind of part of your moral philosophy? So not asking for your whole moral philosophy,
sure,
merely a part.
Yeah, I mean, as applied, that's so broad. Is there a specific area where I can apply it to maybe give you a more specific idea, like as applied to economics or as applied to justice, or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I like having the question broad because it allows kind of to ask for moral principles that you would apply in every situation.
I'm not going to be able to do that. And the issue with that is you can get into these philosophical black holes where maybe 2 years ago I said something that on some superficial level appears to conflict with that. So I just am not ready to very broadly address that right now.
That's fine. That's fine. Maybe could you, to ask more of an applicable question, on justice, for instance, what's kind of your moral philosophy regarding that?
I mean, on justice, I think that one of the most important principles is we have to be able to apply context, upbringing, and social and economic realities when we dole out justice. So for me, justice cannot simply be like, here's 5 facts about some individual and something that they did, and that tells us everything we need to know about how the justice system should deal with that individual and that act. I think we have to consider economic realities, educational realities, sociocultural realities in addressing how individuals should be dealt with within the justice system. And that might mean that superficially similar situations might be handled differently and correctly so, if that makes sense.
I completely agree, and that was a very good take. One follow-up question with that: when viewing like cases and stuff, and considering that context you were speaking of, and is that are you kind of saying that because of their experience or their culture or their growing up, that they kind of had less free will in making that decision, which led to a crime, for instance?
Using the term using the term free will specifically is very dicey, but I think we should all be able to understand how one's circumstances would, without a doubt, push or pull individuals in different directions. And it doesn't mean that we ignore personal responsibility. It just means that if we agree that the goal of the justice system is rehabilitation and deterrence, we have to understand and consider those realities when we figure out how the justice system should work.
Thank you very much, David. I appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thank you for the call. That was Cameron from Calgary. We're going to stick in the waiting lobby for a bit. Let's go to Herb from Long Island. Herb, you're on the air.
Oh, hey, can you hear me, David?
Yes, I can.
All right, wonderful. I appreciate you taking my call on the first time. I was curious, two quick questions. First quick question, is there a fundamental difference between like this kind of show and your normal Friday shows in principle? Or is it just like a bigger version of such a show?
Let me see if I can parse that. Is there a fundamental difference in principle between this?
Like is this just like the same sort of thing you do on your average Friday call-ins, or is there like a theme that you usually do these for?
There is absolutely no theme.
Oh, okay. All right. Then that's pretty much that question. And then I refer to myself as a social democrat. I know you do as well, or something similar.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that you like the idea of moving towards sort of like Sweden or Norway or those Nordic countries' political atmospheres. I have a question for you. If you had to pick between something like Vauch's like anarcho-communism or our current like neoliberalism, and you didn't get the in-between that you're really looking for, which would you rather live under? Like this idealized like socialism or the neoliberalism that we sort of do live under?
So you're saying in either case, that's what it is and you can't ever change it? Like you're just stuck with it exactly as is? Or is it more realistic? Like if I want to try to get to my view, which would I rather start from?
Yeah, I guess I don't believe that you're going to ever live in a void where you have no power. So,
got it.
So I honestly,
here's my thought. I can't tell you exactly what Ian Vauch's anarcho-communism is or whatever. Like, I mean, I know he says he's a socialist, but I don't know exactly what it is. But let me put it in a different way where I can kind of couch it.
Sure.
If the choices are what we have now and work from what we have now towards my ideal, or like the Soviet Union in the Cold War era and try to work to my ideal, I pick what we have now for two reasons. One, I think it's easier to get from what we have now to my ideal because it doesn't require the fundamental restructuring of so many different systems. It just requires making significant modifications to them. And number two, because the places where social democracy exists, it didn't become that way coming from something closer to the Soviet Union. Does that make sense?
I do follow, but the counterpoint I give is I don't think socialists consider like the Soviet Union truly socialist. I think they
Well,
see it
you
as sort of like
do
a
run
red
into
fascist.
some of this no true Scotsman stuff where there are
Right.
it's without a doubt there are socialists and communists who will say the ideal I imagine there's never been an example of. Well, okay, all right. Well, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Then you're going to have to create one somewhere. I'm not super interested in it being where I live, I guess I would say.
Oh, okay, I understand what you. I do know what you're going for. That's pretty much the two questions I had for you. So I appreciate the taking my call, and I'll let you go on to somebody else because I know you got a lot of people waiting.
Well, thank you so much. You've asked some very interesting questions, and I really appreciate hearing from you. Let's go over to the non-member lobby and get a few more people in. Let's go to, oh, I don't know. Why don't we go to, how about Udahef from Florida? You're barely audible and choppy. So if we could fix even one of the two things, we might be better off. But if we can't fix either, we'll have to move on. Unfortunately, we have fixed neither issue there. Let's try instead. How about, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly. Is it Chidi from Helsinki? Chidi?
Hey, Mr. Backman, how you doing?
I'm doing well. What's the right pronunciation?
Chidi, yeah, I spoke
Chidi.
to you maybe about a month and a half ago.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, the finished Californian guy. I don't know if you remember, but
I do remember.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So I was curious about your take on sovereign nations joining NATO. And I'm curious about Finland and Sweden's membership into NATO and what you think Russia's response will be, because both will be voting for membership by June. And there will be downtime between applying and actually joining. So during that time, there really isn't any security guarantees. And it leaves, Finland and Sweden vulnerable to, the current unstable Russian government and army and Putin. And so I'm curious what you think a possible Russian attack would mean for the international community and their response. And then obviously, if Finland and Sweden were to be at war with Russia upon gaining membership with NATO, that would trigger Article 5 and guarantee.
Yeah, I mean, listen, call me crazy. I don't really see Russia going to war with Sweden and Finland. Is that, I mean, are you saying that you think that's plausible?
I mean, I'm worried about the potential, yeah, because Finland has a pretty long history with Russia, obviously back in World War II, between the Winter War and the Continuation War. Russia, had similar false flag operations during World War II to attack Finland, and similarly took pieces of Finnish land during that time. So, there's some deep-rooted history there, and then obviously Putin's at a very unstable state at the moment, and they've been making very serious threats to Finland and Sweden about potentially joining NATO. So, it's a very interesting time.
Yeah, I think that there is no question that Russia will posture as we are under threat, we are under attack, this is aggression against us if NATO were to grow. I just don't see Russia attacking Finland and Sweden, and I could be wrong, and I'll end up eating my phone, if that's the case. I just don't see that as likely. Generally speaking, when it comes to NATO, I sort of have like a libertarian view in a sense, which is if NATO accepts applications and countries decide that it's in their best interest to solicit membership, there is no particular reason that they should be limited or prevented from doing that, or that NATO should preemptively agree that they won't consider particular requests. I just don't see any reason for that. But I also understand logically that there's no question that if all of a sudden everybody but Russia joins NATO, that is something that is going to perk your ears up as Russia. And you could legitimately say that feels like aggression to us. So I understand that. I'm not unrealistic in that way. I get that. But I take a sort of libertarian approach to NATO in that sense.
Yeah, it's a very interesting time geopolitically, because obviously, like if it were similar for the U.S. and Russia were to create alliances with the likes of Mexico and Canada, this is often the argument made that the U.S. would be so comfortable with it. So yeah, it's an interesting time, and especially in Finland, approval for joining NATO has never been higher. I believe it's 60 or 70% now, which is quite unfathomable, considering Finland's very neutral stance since World War II. So yeah, just wanted to get your take on that, and considering your kind of affinity towards Finland and a lot of these European nations.
Love Finland, absolutely. All right, well, listen, an important issue. I appreciate the call.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, there is Chidi from Helsinki. Very great to hear from you. Let's go to Ava from Arizona. Ava, you're on the air in the non-member lobby.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, hi. So, I was wondering about the mask mandates that were just removed from the airplanes.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the pandemic kind of started like from flights, and I feel like taking off the mandates from flying. Do you feel like that's like the end of the pandemic right there?
Well, it might be the end of the pandemic socially in some people's minds, but if you look at the case numbers and the number of people dying every day, it's hard to say that the pandemic is over,
Yeah, definitely. But like, I mean, in people's perspectives, the way that they were like celebrating that the masks were coming off, and like, I feel like the flights were one of the last places where masks were really being enforced. I don't know if that's just me living in Arizona and like not really seeing people wearing masks anymore.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, even like, here in New York, there's no masks really anywhere other than healthcare facilities, and it's been that way for a while now. So you're right that it was like the last frontier. One of the things I think is happening, Ava, is that what we're willing to tolerate now without taking any precautions the bar has been raised. So like as cases go back up and we have a problem again, I think there's going to be much more hesitation to put stuff back on that was on before at the same level of cases. And not everybody is okay with this. As a society, there's this tolerance, but individually, many people don't have that tolerance. And it's going to be hard for those people because they're going to have to decide about existing in a place that is tolerant of much more illness and death all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking about it. Like, it just feels like people don't really care anymore
right.
about COVID or about, people dying from it. I feel like almost everyone's had COVID. It just doesn't really feel like that big a deal anymore, like what it was 2 years ago.
It doesn't feel that way, although the statistics tell us it still is for many, many people. And it is a very strange kind of like in-between time. And I don't know what things will look like in the next 6 months, but it does feel that at least socially, the no masks required on planes is a pretty big change, even if most people aren't really flying anywhere,
Yeah. Yeah, I just feel like it all started with people flying around and spreading COVID all over the world. That kind of started on flights. So I feel like taking the masks off of flights makes people think, oh, there's no more COVID. There's no more pandemic, I guess.
Well, a lot of people already thought that, so it probably won't change that, but it certainly will influence some people. Yep, you're absolutely right, Ava.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, thank you so much for the call. I appreciate it.
Oh, sure, thank you.
All right, there's Ava from Arizona. Let's go back over to our member lobby. Just as a reminder, all direct messages and direct calls, they're all being immediately muted, blocked. Like, I'll never hear from you again. We have a process here. I'm not chatting with people on Discord. The lobbies are the way to ask to get on. So for everybody who's like calling, it immediately just mutes you, and then I never see any future attempts to contact me. Just as a reminder, so people know that. Let's go to Larry from New York City. Larry, you're on the air.
Hey, David, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Nice. It's great to talk to you. It's my first time calling.
Great to have you.
Nice. So yeah, I was actually curious about your thoughts on propaganda specifically in the Latin American neighboring countries.
Yep.
Because I hear a lot of stuff from Mexican friends. I actually, I'm in New York, but I heard about Pizzagate first from Mexican friends, QAnon from them,
Yep.
and now, with the Russian stuff, like I'll hear stuff and then it's like verbatim, like the Russian, you know, narrative.
This is something I'm intimately familiar with, unfortunately. When I was hosting my Spanish language short, like one season show leading up to the 2020 election, I started immediately getting a lot of conspiracy messages from folks in the Latin American community. And I'm on a bunch of different groups and WhatsApp chats and all these different things with like Argentinians and different people. And the amount of misinformation and conspiracies that are spreading there are crazy. Anecdotally, the last time I was in Miami, I had so many Cuban Uber and Lyft drivers tell me about how their aunt's shoulder was magnetized from the vaccine, how they know of a healer that uses. When I was just in Vegas, I had a Cuban Lyft driver who was telling me about a healer that uses sunlight to cure cancer. So she can only do it when it's sunny out, like all this different stuff. It's a major problem. It's depressing to me, but I don't know exactly what the source of it is.
I know. I mean, I think it has to do with, I mean, I know, Russia and China gave Mexico the vaccines.
Yep.
I kind of just see it as they're trying to keep us a little divided from our neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I knew you'd have an opinion about it, especially being from Argentina, because I don't think it's just Mexico. I think it's the whole Latin America. It's a lot of countries.
Absolutely. It's Cuba. It's Argentina. It's everywhere.
Yeah, but yeah, I want to second. That's great. Thanks for the answer. I just wanted to, before I go, say I want to second that other caller from NYC about Russell Brand. You should definitely do a little deep dive.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like an updated second deep dive.
Yeah, because now, I mean, first it was all COVID stuff, but now it's like everything. Like
no, it seems extra weaponized now.
Yeah, it's crazy.
He's off his rocker.
Oh yeah, exactly. And my last thought is just you being a drummer and a fellow drummer to me.
Please.
I was wondering if you were ever a Primus fan.
No, I really was not. I mean, I have no issue with Primus, but I was just never a big fan.
Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah, great drummers. But they have a new song called Conspiranoia. And it's like a 10-minute music video, and it's all about COVID misinfo.
Interestingly, now let me see, oh no, I thought I had a friend who did some stuff with Primus at one point, but I don't. I'm going to check that out, all right?
Yeah, check it out. It goes into all conspiracy theories. I'm really proud of them for putting their foot down.
Awesome. All right, Larry from NYC, great to hear from you.
Awesome, man. Great chatting with you.
Thanks. I do want to say a big thank you to Udahef Heku, who just got a membership at joinpacman.com and I know was trying to get on the air and fixed their phone. So let's go back to Udahef from Florida. You're on the air. Udahef from Florida. You're on the air. And sixth try, Udahef from Florida. Please go, sir.
Can you hear me or can you?
Okay, I heard that.
Oh, okay. You can hear me. I just couldn't hear you for a second. All right, we're good now, right?
I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Hey, I just signed up.
Thank you. I just said your name. I appreciate that.
Seconds ago. Yeah, cool. First of all, I wanted to say I sent you a super chat earlier, and I was like, if they're on their own charter plane, what's the big deal about them singing a religious song? And, I was kind of being joking, and I thought your response was pretty funny, too. I'm not a religious person myself. But then it turned out they weren't on a private charter plane.
Right. It turns out it was an EasyJet flight. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but if I were to talk something serious, so one thing that's interesting to me is like green energy. There's a lot of different possibilities of where that's going to come from, be it wind or solar or nuclear. And these are often compared to, well, I guess they're not often enough compared to what oil does, because the petroleum industry is obviously really a lot worse than those other alternatives. But I do think that we need to be honest and upfront about the damages that certain, like, for instance, windmills. Like you did that segment last week about windmills. And the thing is, if we don't admit that windmills are killing a lot of endangered birds, then no one is going to do anything about it. And the thing is that they're making regulations about how windmills operate. For instance, they have to turn off during nesting seasons and stuff. So like I get that the petroleum industry probably has a really high death toll on animals in general, but we need to be upfront about what's going to be the result of green energy, and that way we can regulate it appropriately.
I totally agree with you. You know, when you've got nearly 8 billion people on the planet and you need energy for them, basically, no matter what you do, there's going to be some cost, right? The creation and transportation of solar panels is going to have some footprint. Windmills are going to have a footprint, and, you know, there can be a death toll. It's just, we need to be really clear that when they talk about, you know, whatever it is, when they talk about bald eagles, we have to be able to say, hey, yeah, but you realize that what we're doing now also kills plenty of bald eagles, and it's much more, right? Like, we just have to be direct and upfront about it. And there's a huge misinformation campaign out there targeted at preventing people from knowing that.
I would agree with you that when, for instance, I don't agree with Trump at all when he says it's killing all the birds, therefore we can't do it.
Yep.
You know, that's ridiculous. But it is true that a windmill company was just sued for killing 150 bald eagles over the course of the last like 6 years or something, which I know that doesn't sound like much, but you got to keep in mind this is something that we're trying to consider expanding. So are we willing to expand that number beyond a certain amount? And what the federal court found is, no, we're not okay with this level of death for these protected species. And so they fined them a massive amount of money, and they said you have to do monitoring for 5 years, and you've got to find ways to make this not as bad as it has been. So, I mean, it's definitely something to consider.
Yeah. The other thing also that I think you have to remember, sorry to interrupt, but there's a lot there and a lot to respond to.
Yeah.
If you just do a lot more wind farms, the technology is going to improve, I believe, such that the death rate for whatever type of bird you're talking about will go down dramatically. So I don't think it would be fair to say, well, if you go from 2% to 10% of energy coming from windmills, that's 5x the energy, it's going to be 5x the deaths. No, I think as the technology matures, it's going to be done in ways where it could be an ultrasonic noise that dissuades the birds from getting close. Or, we're going to figure that out as the technology matures. And we're only going to do that if we keep putting money into it.
Yeah, and that's what the lawsuit was for, is to find ways where we can continue to have this wind farm, but mitigate or, try to reduce the impacts. But there is another aspect to it too, which I think also gets overlooked, and that's a lot of people in flyover country. They really are impacted by because the thing is about wind farms and solar farms is they both take up massive amounts of land. And that has an impact on the people that live around the areas. And I'm not saying that I'm against these things, but it's something that has to be considered. We can't just forget about those people.
Point taken, Udahef. I appreciate the call. We can't just ignore it. Thank you so much for signing up today. I appreciate it.
Okay, Dave, thanks.
All right. There's Udahef from Florida in the non-member lobby. Let's go to Ricky from Charlotte. Ricky, you're on the air.
Hey, David, how's it going? Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so I caught your interview with Nick Majuli. Really like that guy. I followed his work. I'm also in the financial planning industry. I actually just quit my job at one of the major wealth management firms, and I largely agree with most things that you guys have been saying. And the one thing related to like financial matters that I've kind of had a little quibble with you about is in regards to crypto. And I think you were saying that the left shouldn't be like as antagonistic to it as we are. But I think like almost everything that I see with crypto is like the antithesis of what the leftists should support. Just the idea of like a decentralized financial ledger. I mean, that's like the opposite of what, leftists want. We want more centralization. Don't you agree?
I don't know that it should be an overarching principle that we want more centralization and more centralized control, period, in all cases, right? I mean, listen, my decision, right, is I value FDIC insurance. I value SIPC insurance. I value, to a degree, many of the systems that we have, and I'm comfortable with them. And that's why I have, 97% of my assets in everything from stocks to bonds to cash to real estate. Great. For 3%, I think that the decentralization experiment is interesting. I think that the diversification aspect of Bitcoin is interesting. I think that I want the volatility, which comes with potential reward, at a 3% level. So I think the problem is, for me, such black and white thinking, like, no. We should always want more centralization and more central control because we're on the left. Like, well, but do we? I think in a lot of cases we do. And maybe in some places we're open to other things, which for me is 3%, right? That it's not 100%, it's 3%. I don't think there's anything problematic about that.
I don't have too much of a problem with much of what you just said. I mean, and Julie was talking about optimal portfolio, 2 to 3% or whatever in crypto is not a bad thing. But I guess more my things with it, like just the idea, because a lot of the crypto community, they're trying to, like, their end goal is like for it to completely replace traditional financial systems, and I take a huge issue with like a lot of them. They've created like this cult of personality, and it's to me like I feel like it's like a pretty blatant, giant, like they're all about social media hyping up this thing so that they can boost their own personal wealth. Like,
so Ricky, I think I know what you're getting at, Ricky. You're correctly pointing out there is a crazy social media fanboy cult culture around cryptocurrency, and that's a turnoff to you. Am I hearing that correctly?
Absolutely.
I completely agree with you. I think it's just silly. So here's my advice. Don't get all emotional about a lot of these things. There's, to a lesser degree, this happens with real estate. There's people who are like, you should be 100% in real estate and cash. There's no better income producing asset than real estate over time. Just get real estate instead of investing in stocks. Keep leveraging and getting more and more rental properties and rent them out and blah, 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 blah. No, that seems crazy to me. It seems crazy to put all of your eggs in that basket because you have mortgage rate risk, you have property risk, what happened, all these different things. Let's just calmly look at things and say, okay, based on the volatility and historical return of real estate, I want, maybe it's 18% of my assets. I'm just making this up in real estate. Great. I want 10% cash. I want 3% crypto. And then what's left, I'm going to do 70-30 between stocks and bonds. I'm not emotionally attached to the S&P 500 or to real estate or to Bitcoin or whatever. These are tools that I'm using. That's it, you know?
Yeah. No, I agree. And so I guess just the last thing I'll leave like anyone that's listening with is just because anybody on the internet, whether claims to have made money by something, doesn't mean that it's a copy and paste method that you can make to use to make money.
Not only that, it doesn't even mean they're telling the truth. They might not even have made money from it.
Bros that are out here. Yes. But even if they are, that doesn't mean it's a copy and paste method.
Of course.
Necessarily. And a lot of these crypto bros that are hyping it, like the big personalities, they got in super early and they're just playing with house money, trying to see if they can become billionaires.
Yeah. Listen, you're breaking up, but the point is well taken.
I call it a pump and pump.
Yes.
It's not a pump and dump, but I appreciate it, David.
Ricky, thank you. There's Ricky from Charlotte whose connection just crumbled like a cookie that just went bad. It fell into crumbs. Let's go back over to the member waiting lobby and speak to Patrick from Vernon Hills. Patrick, you're on the air.
Hey, David, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Cool. I called in once before. I have a kind of a specific question, but you can take it to a more general place.
Okay.
I kind of feel like the right has been gaining ground on the language game in many different aspects.
Yes.
But specifically, I was thinking of the redefinition of the word socialism. And I found that even people on the left and on the right really have no clue what they're talking about.
Correct.
When they talk about socialism. I heard a viewer last week on your show who, said we should be more like Norway and we'll get people used to socialism, which, I guess their oil is nationalized, but otherwise not a socialist country.
Right.
Do you think we should bother with trying to re-educate people on what these terms mean? Or do you think we should just say, all right, socialism is when the government does things. You know what? I'm for socialism now because this is the new definition and let's just reappropriate it and live with it.
It's very hard for me to say that that's what we should do because then if that's socialism, then what do we call actual socialism? It just pushes the problem around rather than really solving it. And I get the instinct, which is like, listen, maybe we're just going to get more done if we say, you know what? Yeah, Medicare is socialism or, whatever it is. Maybe we would get more done. I'm not even sure that we would. And so I don't know that that's my instincts are not to just like seed the ground on that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's a similar thing with like CRT, right?
Yeah.
They completely redefined that, do you even bother?
And the thing that's tough about it is the meaning of words does change over time. That's absolutely true. So like, I don't take this hard and fast view, like this is what X means and it has to always mean that. I understand that the meaning of words can change over time, but this is more because this is a whole series of concepts. And I think it's very murky to just be like, yeah, socialism is just like, free COVID tests are socialism now. Like I'm certainly not there at this point.
Yeah, thanks for answering that. I guess a small criticism. I really like your show, but as someone who's very clumsy with the way I speak,
yeah,
I do cringe quite a bit with how much of a pronunciation Nazi you are. But
it's kind of just even an ongoing joke because I mispronounce stuff all the time. It's just an ongoing joke, and it's not meant to offend anybody, or we're just kind of adding some levity to what are often very negative things happening, and I mispronounce things all the time.
Yeah, I figured something like that. Cool. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
All right. Thanks very much. Beautiful phone call. I'm glad we were able to see eye to eye on so many different things. Let's go back over to the regular non-member waiting lobby. And why don't we speak to, I don't know. How about Bart from California? Bart, what's going on?
David, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Great. I just wanted to give you a quick discussion about messaging. I was going to try to respond back to the earlier caller's comment about messaging in the Democratic system party, basically. One of the things I love your show, by the way.
Thank you.
I've been a member, so I'm not sure why I'm not in the member lobby. Anyway,
I couldn't answer that.
I'll have to find out what the technical issues.
Please.
Anyway, I started a group called Team Airdrop, and what we're doing is we're putting messaging into places like restaurant reviews, hotel reviews, to try to bring messaging past some of the conservative places like Atlanta or wherever they are that might basically have a Fox News echo chamber going, to try to get past some of these social media blocks and things that are happening, and just a lot of the social media bots that are out there. And I kind of wanted to talk to you about that in a sense, because maybe you could help by telling people about this particular program. And I set up a website called teamairdrop.org. And for those people that want to go out there and check it out. But the idea is kind of like what they did in World War II, where they would drop, electronic, pamphlets, over the enemy lines during the war, basically. And they were doing that recently in Russia to try to bring in some Ukrainian information into the Russian people. So I wanted to get your thoughts on this.
I have to tell you, Bart, I have no idea what you're talking about. You're making hotel reviews where you put you slip political stuff into hotel reviews?
Well, think of it this way. Instead of putting political stuff, you can put in messages like, for example, this is a great hotel. I've loved staying here. I might stay here. And by the way, if you want to go, check out some good information on a quote from David Pakman, check out David Pakman, for example. And that would help bring people not so much a direct message, but actually get people to maybe go look at and listen to the information and get information from a different source versus.
Yeah, I mean, listen, here's my thought on that, Bart. It's not for me because I have a platform to much more directly get to people.
Right.
But I'm not going to tell anybody who wants to do their form of activism that they shouldn't do it. If this is working for you or others, by all means, have at it,
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's a lot of times I think we're in sort of an echo chamber where we listen to each other and sort of go to these, go to your show and other shows where we talk to each other, but we're not getting the message out to people that maybe aren't in our echo chamber.
That I agree with. That I agree with very much. And we've got to figure out a way to reach people not already on our side. That's for sure. That's a great effort to do that we should be doing.
Yeah. So we'll check out teamairdrop.org and let me know what you think if you want to leave a message or anything there. And I'd love comments from people if they have any thoughts on it and, from people in the audience.
All right. There is Bart. Thank you very, very much for the call. Let's go back over to the member lobby and go to Tim from Oregon. Tim, welcome.
Dave, how's it going?
It's going well.
Good day.
Uh-oh.
Hey, two burning questions. Would you rather face, as a progressive, would you rather face Donald Trump in 2024 or Ron DeSantis?
So here's the challenge with that. I think Trump is more likely to win as of right now, based on the polling. But I think the risk is greater if DeSantis wins because DeSantis is more dangerous because he's less incompetent. So I think if you said to me, they're equally likely to win, I would say Trump because Trump's more of an idiot, more incompetent, and likely to get less done. However, if the question is, Trump's more likely to win, but DeSantis, then it gets more complicated. We kind of have to do like some kind of expected value calculation. But even odds, if they're equally likely to win, I would say I would prefer facing Trump because he's less dangerous than DeSantis.
Do you think right now, if you were to be a betting man, which one would you pick to win?
To win the nomination?
Equal odds if you're given, the nomination, I guess. Would be.
Is the question, who do I think will be the Republican nominee?
Yeah.
Okay. If Trump runs, as of today, I think it will be Trump, but his margin of leading DeSantis is shrinking every single month. So if you ask me in 6 months, I might have a different answer, but I will answer it this way. If the Republican nomination, if the Republican primary was happening right now, I believe Trump would be the nominee.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One more burning question, and this is I suppose a little bit of a tricky one. Elon Musk is a fairly controversial figure right now. Would you say he's, all the companies he's founded and pushed forward and whatnot, would you say he's a net positive for society? I know that's kind of a weird moral question to assign to a person.
This is a really tough one, and there's people who will be very triggered no matter what I say. Elon Musk, to me, everybody love to have a hot take about Elon Musk. I really don't have a hot take on Elon Musk. My view on Musk is, you know, no matter what you say about him, there's always a yeah, but like, well, he's a good businessman. Oh, yeah, but he built his businesses not really from the ground up, but rather with other people, with his family's money. Okay, all right, so he's a bad businessman. He's not good. No, but David, he took that money and look at what he did with it. Okay, so he's good. You can't say anything about him without triggering people. My view is as follows. Elon Musk has a lot of terrible political views, things that he tweets that I find absolutely idiotic, stupid, whatever. I also see that Elon Musk, whether he invented the technologies or not, he has carried forward major technological projects and advancements, PayPal, Tesla, etc., in ways that most people couldn't do. Okay, now, if you put Steve Jobs in charge of Tesla, could he have done? Yeah, maybe. But it's a small subset of people who can do what Elon Musk has been able to do and focus on it. So I think that there's positive things about him and negative things about him. And at the end of the day, I don't idolize folks like Elon Musk. I don't think any of them are, you know, black or white or whatever. And I mean, some of them are black or white racially, but my point is I don't see them as one thing or the other. And they're just people like everybody else, just like politicians, you know, I agree with them on some things and disagree on other things.
Yeah. He won't buy Twitter, will he?
I don't believe he will buy Twitter. No.
Yeah, I agree with that.
No.
Okay. Well, thanks, Dave. Appreciate it.
All right, my friend. Thank you so much for the call. All right, everybody. As promised, 75 minutes of town hall. I appreciate everybody I did speak to. I appreciate everybody that I didn't speak to. And I apologize to those people because we can never get to everybody. But we will do another town hall again before you know it. And it's going to be a beautiful thing. Trump rally live Saturday night. Hope you'll join me, and many other things happening this week.